News Talk 1090, WKBZ.
Welcome. You're listening to the Renegade River Show. My name is Mike Hewitt, and I got to tell you, it's good to be back. Oscar, was it 3 or 4 weeks I've been gone? Are you on there? 3 or 4 weeks?
I'm here. I think it was 3.
3 weeks?
3 weeks, yeah.
Seems like forever.
Yeah. And you picked the greatest day of the year to come back.
Isn't this a great time? Oh, yeah. I came in at 30 miles an hour. I was one of the old fogies everyone was waving at. I'm sure that's what they were doing.
Were you up there right next to the window, too, with your nose?
You betcha. Oh, yeah. Elbows bent, hanging on for dear life. Hey, today's show, I've got a whole bunch of notes I want to go over. So, Oscar, from time to time here, if I'm looking like I'm stumbling, you or keep your mic on just in case I get in trouble.
I can stumble with you anytime.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate it. Hey, for the last week or so, it seems, actually since I've been gone, it seems like there's been a resurgence of the cultural war. And I think that is probably part and parcel as we head towards Christmas time. It seems like it heats up every year. And of course, it's double bubble this year because you got the Duck Dynasty drama. And even before that, for us Michigan folks, you've got Dave Agema, who, by the way, will probably be calling in at somewhere during the show today. But you've got some comments that Dave Agema made. In both cases, they're out of religious fervor. And frankly, from my standpoint as a Jeffersonian, it doesn't necessarily, I don't entirely agree with them, but I don't entirely disagree with them. The one thing that I'd say is that I absolutely agree with their right to say what they've said. And there's one of the other debates that's been going on kind of along with the center debate is whether that's a First Amendment right. The extreme left will shrilly yell back, it's not a First Amendment right. The First Amendment is to protect us from the government. And they're probably right. In fact, I've got the words in here somewhere during the day today. We're going to read the First Amendment just to make sure we're all on the same page. But whether it's a First Amendment right or not, it should be common sense. And for me, it's an American value. And in fact, I think that when folks, regardless of what side of the fence they're on, when they reach out to try to silence the other side, to me, that's not only not American, it's by definition fascism. And I think it's a scary, scary thing to try to silence people. If I see something on TV, I affectionately call ABC the All Barack channel, or then there's the National Barack channel, or PMS NBC that loves to go out of their way to say absolutely sensational things. And you know what? I don't want to shut them up. And in fact, a lot of the times I'm applauding them, by the way, because they really help people to see who they really are. That said, when I don't want to listen anymore, you know what I do? I just change the channel. The idea of, in America, us saying, I want them off, I think that's mind-boggling. That's something from a very different time in world history, and I don't know that we want to go there. That's how I see it. But for me, let's drive into faith a little bit. I believe that it is a human nature to have faith. Even those folks that say they're atheists and that they have no faith have faith in their atheism. I think that's a human nature trend to have a need to believe in something. Of course, they'll say that's not true, but then they have their own doctrine. They have their absolutely a blind faith because they can't document it any more than anybody of any other faith can document it. That's the point of the word faith. And it's just amazing to me that at this late date in society, we've got opposing views that want to silence each other. Now, to different extremes, you got the Muslim fundamentalists that want to whack your head off. But I don't know that that's entirely different than what I've been hearing from the very hard left here in America over what the guy from Duck Dynasty said. And I have to be candid with you. I've never watched Duck Dynasty. I'm not against it. I've never watched it. But I will tell you it's fascinating the position that A&E has taken because they have knowingly and wantingly wanted to sensationalize people with faith. That's what their real agenda was. Didn't have nothing to do with anything that had to do with ducks or their dynasty. It was about how they wanted to depict people of faith. And I'm a person of faith, but I don't look like anyone from Duck Dynasty. And if you've listened to the show before, you know I don't talk like them either. That said, that's how A&E wanted to project them. They purposely sought a family that looked that way so that they could caricaturize people with faith. Now they've got what they asked for, and they appear to be uncomfortable with it. Fascinatingly enough, though, one of the pushbacks that we always get is, but what do the sponsors say? And I think that at least as of late last night, there was only one sponsor that was getting weak-kneed, and that was Crockery Barrel, I think was the one. And even they weren't backing away. They were just taking off some of the products from their shelves that specifically had Phil's face on it. But when I stand back and look at it, I'm just amazed. It goes back to what I said before. Why would you want to hide the product? If as a consumer I don't want to buy it, I'm just not going to buy it. To me, and I don't want to be sensational, I'm not calling anybody a Nazi, so don't take me that way. But when I start hearing about the ideas that we're going to try to hide ideas, it truly does remind me of the pictures we've all seen out in Berlin where they had, 15-foot tall stacks of books set on fire. And I'm thinking, really? Is that really what we want to be like? If you don't like it, change the channel. That's truly how I feel. If you don't like the product, don't buy it. Let the market decide. Because, by the way, the market isn't some evil third party, some foreign conglomerate. The market is us. We are the market. So if they need to have 50 people buy their products and only 5 do, that'll be the end of that. We don't need to turn them off. We don't need to silence them or demand that they be removed and demand that they be fired. And by the way, both sides are guilty. I hear it from the right wing also. So-and-so said this about such and such. I don't care what they said. I truly, genuinely, I don't care. Doesn't make any difference to me. What was that Jefferson said? And I only can paraphrase him, but it neither skins my knees nor pick my pockets if you say there's one God or 20. I stand back and I think, now, by the way, the atheists love to take some of Jefferson's quotes and turn him into an atheist, but he wasn't. He was very much a person of faith. He just didn't have their faith. But he also knew that he was secure enough in his faith that he didn't have to fear what somebody else said. And I would hope that 235, 240 years later, that we would be secure enough in our individual faiths, whether that faith is atheism or deity or Christianity or Hinduism. It doesn't matter. What difference does it make? I don't understand the forethought that if we don't like it, we've got to silence it. That kind of thinking to me is extremely, extremely scary. Listen, on a slightly different note, because I'm going to beat up this topic a little bit for the next little while, but on a slightly different note, I've got 9 grandchildren. The oldest of them posts on her Facebook page. She has a picture of several family members that she's artfully put together. She's 11 now. She's artfully put them together. And on her little caption, it reads, "Family is the most precious thing a girl can have." And I got to tell you, one of the things that we lose in this cultural war, and you're going to see it at the holidays, by the way, when you go to your Christmas family gathering, not your holiday tree, but when you go to Christmas parties, you're going to find that there are going to be differing views. Guarantee it. And our president has asked us to debate Obamacare during Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm not going to be doing that, but you'll see some differences. But listen, you got to stand back and say, what is the real thing that's important right now? And to me, for me at least, it's family. And so when I read my granddaughter putting those kind of things together, it warms my heart as a family, as being her grandfather. But more importantly, it tells me that when the shrill on either side say we're doomed and we're in trouble, man, there's a future, because young people like that are seeing things like that, and they know what matters. Now, we may get lost because we're over-arguing about this and that and the other thing, but the 11, the 12-year-olds, the 13-year-olds, they know that family is what's most important. And on that note, we've got, a divorce rate of over 50%. I don't know anybody that doesn't have somebody in their immediate family with single-parent children situations. I've lived it, by the way. I've got a daughter with it. I don't know anybody that hasn't been inflicted with it. And when you go through that, that's when you learn what family really means. And by the way, you heard me talk about this before, but when you start looking at crime statistics, then you know what single parenting, what the impacts can be. Now, I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but the statistics are what they are. Single parent families cause problems. Now, I don't have a clue. Must be that big, gigantic book that was Unintended Consequences. I don't know if everyone's ever seen it, but it's a huge book, and it's entitled Unintended Consequences, and this is part government decisions that cause ripples down the way, and then we've got to decide as a society when we get to them, and I think that we're at one of those crossroads now. We have to decide, is that really the kind of structure of a society we want? And then if it isn't, then we have to, and I'll use this word even as a Jeffersonian, we have to collectively decide to change our mind and head in a different direction. And on that note, it's kind of a neat thing because for the last 10, maybe even 15 years, I mentioned cultural war when we started out today, there's been a push throughout corporate America to say happy holidays. And yesterday, I put on my own Facebook page. But let me interrupt myself for a minute. Speaking of Facebook pages, the Renegade River Show has a Facebook page. If you would, please like it. And if you have questions during the show, ask them, because I look at that kind of constantly during the show to see if there are any comments or questions, or maybe someone want to tell me I'm flat wrong. I'm okay with that. But I commented on there yesterday that I was really pleased that, well, let me read it exact. Today I was told Merry Christmas by someone at the FBI NICS background check system. That was our federal government said Merry Christmas. That warmed my heart. Also at Walmart, Myers, D&W, and even someone from Charter Communications told me Merry Christmas. And then I got to looking at it. There's a bunch of companies now, Sears, Belk, Hobby Lobby, of course, Walmart, Lowe's, and a bunch of others that have steered their companies away from saying happy holidays and back toward a traditional America. And I got to tell you, I try to put myself in a different position. If I were an atheist, if I was some other faith, how would I be? Would I be insulted by it? No, I wouldn't. I'd say Happy Christmas and Merry Christmas to you too, and keep on walking. To me, words can either light you up or twist you up, and you get to make the choice. Is that what you want to do? Are you going to let them light you up and make you smile, make you happy, or are you going to let them twist you up? I, for one, I'm just not going to give folks that I disagree with that kind of power. I'm reminded on this note, when I say the American left, by the way, I'm not talking about your average Democrat that we meet when we're at the supermarket. I'm talking about the hard left. So I say the American left long ago abandoned true liberalism, trading it for economic Marxism and social and societal fascism. And listen, I believe that. If you look at, and these words always tend to be a little bit sensational because of the way we've monsterized them, but that doesn't change the fact that they have real meaning. If you read the Communist Manifesto, Marxism, they got, I think, 10 planks. If you read it, forget all the hype and all of just read the words, a translation. You go, well, yeah, that truly is what they're trying to do. So it's what the actual meaning. It's not a slam. It's the meaning of the word. And then I'd already pointed out my feeling on the word fascism. If we demand that someone lose their job and be thrown out in the street because they said something that insulted us, wow, that's a slippery slope to empower the government or corporate America with that kind of power. I just think we need to be careful. So I don't know if you agree with me or not, but to me, words truly, truly have a meaning. We've got to get beyond the sensationalism and look at the definition, and then ask ourselves if we want to bother with it, if we want to learn more. I would always encourage learning more. In the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit about education, speaking of learning more, because to me, and you've heard me say this before, I'm really about advancing family and education. I don't think we can beat up on school teachers without looking at what's going on in the American family. And to me, it's a two-legged thing. It has to be done for us to move forward. And I did say forward. On a side note, I'm still on the original topic. As I watch the war on Christianity intensify nearing Christmas again this year, I'm reminded of Stalin and his ideological objective of eliminating religion and, of course, Christmas. And I say that kind of smiling, knowing that the last time the Soviet flag was officially flown over the Kremlin was on Christmas Day in 1991. So with that, that's what I think. We're going to be right back, folks, and stay right there. Welcome back. You're listening to the Renegade River Show. My name is Mike Hewitt, and today we're talking a little bit about family and education and values and Christmas, and of course I might be preaching against socialism again. You got to watch me from time to time. I do that. Let me remind you again, the Renegade River Show is on Facebook. Just search the Renegade River Show. There you can ask a question or look for shows. And by the way, we're on iHeartRadio, which means that my sister Brenda Brown, hello Brenda, is probably listening out in Las Vegas, and a bunch of friends of mine in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and I think Oscar told me there's people from somewhere else in a different country that listen once in a while.
And Norway loves you.
Norway loves me.
Yeah.
There you go. Who would have thought? I thought they were a little progressive in Norway.
Yeah, well, I'm a Norwegian, so there you go.
Is this like, but you're progressive, aren't you?
I am.
There you go. See, it's all making. But you're getting paid. You're stuck listening to me.
Right.
Okay, President Obama is reviving the income inequity drama as we go forward for the rest of his term. And whenever we get into income inequities, what we're really talking about, there's that word again, what we're really talking about is socialism. It is how can we distribute the wealth in America on a more equitable basis. Now, him and I obviously disagree. He thinks the way to do it is spread it out like peanut butter, regardless of where it came from or where it should be, and I think it ought to be earned. It reminds me of a school teacher that came to Renegade River and was standing in the gun shop portion of the store one evening, and we were talking politics, hard as that is to imagine. And he and I agreed on almost everything. And where we finally got to the point where he left mad is and by the way, I didn't respond to him. He just assumed I had a position. But when we got to the point about his income, he said, so we agree on everything. You just don't want me to make any money. And that's kind of a little bit dovetails with Obama's inequity of incomes rhetoric, in as much as I want him to make a lot of money, the teacher. I truly do. I want him to make a boatload of money, but I want him to earn it. I don't want him to get paid the same amount if he sleeps in his class while the person next to him down the hallway is doing a tremendous job, and people are leaving his or her class with this fierce desire to learn more because his teacher has turned him or her on. To me, you get paid. If I don't do well at my store will stop working. I'll be done. If you don't like what I'm saying here on the radio, you'll quit listening. That's how America became as strong as we've gotten. I believe that. I believe in that concept. And while we're talking about value, I got to talk about the cost of higher education and frankly, the value of it. I get on this rampage from time to time, but I recently read an article on MLive.com, and it was about the amount of money that the top 16 executives at the University of Michigan earn. Their base, just their base, we're talking 16 people, by the way, their base income combined is $7.5 million. And when you drill down into the numbers a little bit further, their base income in large part represents roughly 50% of what they actually make. So now we're approaching an average of almost $1 million a person. I stand back from that. Now, understand, I'm not a class envy kind of guy. I'm really not. In fact, I preach hard against folks with class envy and all of that type. To me, it's socialism. On the other hand, I was talking about value. So I stand back and I say, I think her name is Ms. Coleman, the president of U of M. What could she possibly do to earn $1.5 million working in an administrative position over a university? I frankly don't get it. They've got roughly 43,000 students per fall sign-up semester is what they report for 12 and for 13 years. I divide the numbers in, and I'm flabbergasted by what it's costing the average student, just Mr. or Mrs. student, to go to the school just for 16 faculty members. We're not talking about the hundreds of faculty members that they employ in total, just the top 16. I have a tough time getting my head around that. I talked a while back on a different show kind of about this topic. We were looking at the growth of income in America from 1980 through the year 2010. The average income had went up 200%, and the average cost of higher education had went up a little more than 800%. And at least I stand back and think, how can anybody rationalize that? To me, it's the same as President Obama trying to figure out how to pay for a $6 cotton ball. I think we're asking the wrong questions. I truly do. I don't know that we're looking to value and saying, hey, we're not getting value out of that. I look at a liberal arts degree. In fact, let me digress for a moment. My brother-in-law, who's a police officer, in fact, he's been on the show before. He was a police officer in Pontiac, and during his police officer career, he was going to college, and with the idea at some point maybe of being a lawyer. And one of the classes on his path to becoming a lawyer was Introduction to China. I think, what? What the heck does that have to do with being a lawyer in Oakland County, Michigan? A good friend of mine, double bachelor's degree, went on to a master's degree, mathematics and computer science, had a bowling 101 and advanced bowling. And I'm thinking, what are we thinking as a society to pay this faculty what in truth is $14 million to 16 people, and pay on average $175 for a textbook. A textbook. Now remember, folks, I wrote America's Final Beginning. I'm not going to tell you that I'm a some new guru in the printing or literary industry. I'm obviously not. On the other hand, my book was 370 or so pages. The wholesale cost on producing the book is around $10. And I'm thinking to myself, now forget the content of the words, that part doesn't matter. First off, by the way, they print way more textbooks than I sold of my book. There's a shock. Don't laugh at me, Oscar. So, and then I think of production costs. If my book in the 10,000 sell range costs about $10 for me to buy on average, when I say average cost between hard copy and soft copy is about $10 to $12. And they're selling a textbook that they're selling millions of copies on for $175. The same geniuses, by the way, that are making $15 million divided up amongst 16 people, they think that's a great idea. They don't see a problem in the world with it. That the average person who's 18 or 19 years old should be signing up for something that is now equivalent to the average mortgage. Think about what I'm telling you. A college degree in cost, in total, is now equivalent to the average mortgage. And you get to have really racing classes like Introduction to China and Advanced Bowling. And I step back and I go, wow. And then so when I look at corporate America, who are the people that are saying we need to say happy holidays? I think, where do they get those people that think that that's a good idea to profit from Christmas, but say happy holidays? That's the hypocrisy I have with it, by the way. It isn't me trying to force my Christianity on them, but they are making the biggest chunk of their entire annual income will come as a direct result of a Christian holiday named Christmas. But they want to say happy holidays. And I think, well, where do they get the people that think that's a good idea? And there's the answer. Those are the folks that thought it was a great idea to pay the equivalent to the average mortgage and spend $1,000 on 5 or 6 books so that 16 people could make $15 million. I can't get my head around that thinking. I really can't. So then I stand back and say, well, where are those folks coming from? Why is this being? There's this leftover thing in America that says you've got to go to college. Each generation, by the way, including mine, that want the best for their children, I got to find a way to get my child to be able to complete college. That's great. But we're not asking what the content of college is. We're not asking why is college, why is a book that costs them less than $10 to produce $175 on average? That's some serious rapage and pillaging going on as far as I'm concerned. But nobody seems to be asking that question. They're going, how do we pay for it? How do we pay for the $6 cotton ball and the $9 Motrin tablet? Folks, we got to slow down and stand off, and the answer to it is not more socialism. It just isn't. I'm sorry, it's not. That's how we got in this jam. And more of it won't. What do you think more of what's gotten us here is going to produce for us? There's no question what it's going to. And if anyone has any doubt about it, just look to what we're hearing about premiums with Obamacare, with the deductibles going up five times in the. It's just one of those never-ending spirals. 72% believe big government is the greatest threat. Did you all see that in the news? While we're talking about education, let me touch on vouchers for a minute. To me, that's part of it, because I want to dial back away from college. I'll quit picking on those millionaires for a moment, and let's look at just public schools, K through 12. So 13 years of formal education, and you've got virtually no trade schooling going on. You have a curriculum that is in excess of 90% college preparatory, while you have, in Michigan at least, 25% average college graduation. So let's do the math again. 90% plus college curriculum, pre-college curriculum, for a population that has a 25% college graduation rate. And folks, that doesn't add up to me either. I'm thinking, what path are we on that learned and educated people sit down and think that makes sense? I'd be darned if we have a rounded, I used to joke about it, we have this rounded education program. I said, in the middle of this time donut, that's where we used to keep reading, writing, and arithmetic. And we're not doing it. We don't teach cursive. By the way, that's a way of thinking. It's not that you get to write cursive and, oh boy, looking isn't that fancy. It helps establish a way of thinking. But it's a lot of work to teach cursive. And Lord knows we don't want anybody to have to work too hard while they're earning that kind of dough. And people say, Mike, teachers don't make a lot. Once they're tenured, they make twice on average, twice what the income is in their communities. And they work part-time by my definition. Keeping in mind, I work 6 days a week, and my 7th day, you know where I'm at. Okay? So when I look at somebody that gets nine months a year and a lot of vacation time and PTA time and just endless amounts of time off, listen, I'm not taking anything from them. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not attacking them. But to not be able to politically call something what it is how we've gotten in this jam. Nobody is wanting to stand up and say, you know what? 9 months a year worth of work and 3 months off is really 6 months, and you're making twice what the average community worker is making. And what are you getting for results? We're getting what I talked about here a few months ago when we talked about the SAT scoring, where they measured folks born in 1952 and what they scored, in 1953 and what they scored, all the way through to folks born in 1992 and what they scored. And every single year without fail, it went down, not up. Didn't plateau, didn't tweak once in a while. It went down every single year. So I say, do we really want to pay that as an achievement? Do we really want those folks to have free hand over their curriculum? So therefore, was a while when I was really railing hard against Common Core. And I'm certain if I would have been beating drums back when we did the No Child Left Behind thing, I probably would have been just as excoriating over that. Because to me, they're all the same program with just different verbiage. It's another way to sell a whole bunch of books and do a whole bunch of rounded education without any reading, writing, arithmetic, or cursive. And I just think that's very, very troubling. But it's the foundation that we're setting the higher college on, the higher education, university education on, that I was already incriminating when an 800% increase in 20-some years is over the top to me. It's unfathomable that we're not looking at it. It's the same with the hard left that says they're working entirely. Their whole goal is to make sure that the average working person and minorities all get a fair share. Okay, let's see. Are we really getting them a fair share? Let's look at education in inner city anywhere in America. Doesn't matter whether it's Muskegon or Detroit or L.A. Doesn't matter where we're talking about. Have we given those folks an opportunity, I hate to use the word because it's such a lightning rod, but have we come up with a voucher system or something like it so that a parent that's really, really trying to raise a stellar child can say, I want other choices, this isn't working for me? The answer is no, nowhere. It's not happening. And I think, wait a minute, that's kind of one of those where I've got my right foot standing on my left foot and I can't figure out why I can't walk anywhere. Those folks are largely the same folks that are voting for the Democrats who are saying, no, you can't have a voucher system. And to me, it's the same kind of rationale that causes us to say, how do we pay for the $6 cotton ball? These are questions that we need to stand back from. Set aside party ideology, by the way. I'm so sick of hearing Democrats are one thing and Republicans are another thing. Some of these things are common sense. $9 Motrin tablets is insane, and I don't care what party you're a member of. It's insane. And for us to stand back and say, how should we pay for it? That's insane. The answer is we shouldn't pay for it. We should be engaging, I hate to use this word, it upsets the liberals so much. We should be engaging in competition. We should be instilling, fostering, finding ways of promoting citizens to be able to have their insurance, their access to monies that promotes competition. I talked about it a month and a half ago. I said, let's assign everyone a certain dollar value on a health Visa card. and they can keep everything over a certain dollar value. You want to see insurance costs go down. You want to see health care itself go down. Imagine what the doctor's offices would think across America if they got blasted with a bunch of phone calls every day that said, tell me what your services are and how much you charge. Why are you asking? Because I'm calling a bunch of doctors to find out who's going to give me the best deal based on best service. Or you want to be in that loop or not? You want to see prices drop? You want to see hospitals stop charging $9 for a Motrin tablet? Make those phone calls in non-emergency circumstances. You'll find healthcare go down. Now, the flip side of it is, say, we're not even going to dial back and look at that. We're going to keep talking in the trillions and figure out how to pour trillions of dollars more into a health system without asking why do we need trillions. You're going to watch the costs go up. Doesn't matter whether it's Bush or Reagan or Obama. Doesn't matter who the president is or what party they're from. If that's the rationale we're going to use, we know what to expect because we've seen it for the last 48 years. Health costs will go up as a matter of absolute fact. That's what's going to happen. So if that's the direction you want to go, let's get on that path. I, for one, when we get to the final segment, I'm going to talk a little bit about party politics. But I'm telling you, party politics is largely why we're not able to ask the honest questions. Folks, we'll be right back in just a moment. Well, welcome back. You're listening still to the Renegade River Show, and my name is Mike Hewitt. Hey, listen, before I get into the party mix, let me dovetail back just for one brief moment, just to clarify. I don't want to walk away from that segment having beat up totally on the teachers and have folks think that I'm blaming the entire societal problems on teachers, because that's just not the case. I think it's been a cultural change in America in total. I was joking off the air with Oscar that I saw a cartoon once. I maybe have even mentioned this in an episode gone by, but I saw a cartoon once and it showed 1960. There's a child who's clearly in trouble and he's sitting in front of the teacher's desk. And mother and father are standing on the teacher's side of the desk talking to the child. And then we cast forward to the other half of that picture, and it showed that same child sitting in a chair in front of the teacher's desk with a mother, just the mother, with the mother standing in front of the teacher yelling at the teacher saying, my child couldn't have done that. Well, so, the teachers can't do corporal punishment, so there's no whacks on the butt. There's no... of course, I'm almost 53 in another few weeks, and that's the world I grew up in. I don't look back and think, wow, I was persecuted. I got whooped. It just didn't happen. But I did have some memorable moments. I remember the big, gigantic, monster-sized board with holes in it. Looked like a gigantic pancake flipper, but that's not what they did with it. But those, to me, and I say this tongue-in-cheek truly, but it's truth. Those are character builders. Those are how you learn right from wrong. And if you're always told that if we're always going to use cause and effect as parents to justify our children's actions, I don't know how we can possibly think that they're going to grow up to know what's right and wrong. I can't get that to add up either. So I wanted to dovetail that. Oscar made that point with me while we were off the air. He's absolutely right. I don't want to say there's just one side to that debate. There are a lot of problems that go into why we've seen some of the things that we don't like the results of. So I just want to make sure I pointed that out. Next thing is I did want to talk about party politics for a minute. The first is I don't think I've ever had to do this, but I get to quote Barbara Walters. Yep, no, I've never quoted her. I'm thinking about it. We thought that he, referring to Obama, we thought that he was going to be, I shouldn't say this at Christmas time, but the next Messiah, Barbara Walters told Piers Morgan. She added, and the whole Obamacare, or whatever you want to call it, that Affordable Health Care Act, it just hasn't worked for him, and he's stumbled around on it, and people feel very disappointed because they expected more. And I read that, and I think, folks really believed him. And I find that fascinating. I honestly do. I'm not picking on anybody, and I'm not trying to be mean-spirited, but I'm watching it the same as everybody else did, and there was never one moment in time that I believed him. Do I believe he really wanted to fundamentally transform America? Yes. Did I believe that Obamacare would work? Absolutely not, because it doesn't deal with the question I told you, folks, that I believe is important. That is, why are we trying to pay for $6 cotton balls and $9 Motrin tablets. It doesn't address that issue. So therefore, I don't care whether Romney invented it or Obama invented it. I don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican issue. You know how the Democrats go, well, the Republicans are the ones that came up with the idea. Folks, I don't care. It doesn't work. And so let's skip party politics. Let's stand back and say, do we? And I get to move from Barbara Walters. How often do you get to move from Barbara Walters to Ronald Reagan? That's just an amazing thing to me. Reagan said a political party cannot be all things to all people. It must represent certain fundamental beliefs which must not be compromised to political expediency or simply to swell its numbers. Reagan said that in his famed "Raise a Banner of Bold Colors, Not Pale Pastels" speech. I say that because I think he's right, and I don't think it matters whether we're talking about the Republican Party or the Democrat Party or the Libertarian Party or, frankly, any other party. We cannot be all things to all people, and we have to recognize that. So I think as a society, we need to individually look in the mirror and say, what do I really believe? And here's the big one. Not only what do I really believe, but write this down, do it for yourself, not for me. Why? Why do I believe that? Does it make sense to me? Forget what Reed said. Forget what, I can't even say his name, the Speaker of the House said. Forget what those people are saying. Ask yourself that. What do I really believe? Step away from your whatever your party is. Step away from it for a moment. Say, do I really believe this will work? Do I think this is the right thing? Am I really locked in dogma of class warfare or whatever the latest union quote or anti-union quote was? Am I asking myself why? And if you are, then write down your core principles and stick with them. And then if the Republican Party did that, they wouldn't be having, as a party, it wouldn't be shuffled off into Neverland, which is what I think. The more they reach for people, the less they become valuable. There's a surprise. Makes sense to me. Think about that for a minute. The more they reach out in different directions, the less valuable they become. And by the way, I think the same thing is true of the Democrat Party. And on that note, the Democrat Party is on its way to a gigantic problem. Listen, let me stop myself for a minute. We've got Dave Agema on the telephone line with us. Dave?
How are you doing? I only get a few minutes, so make it good.
Now we'll ring the bell hard. Dave, recently you got in the same little bit of a drama right in advance of the Duck Dynasty fella did.
That's correct.
Now, just for everyone that doesn't know, Dave Agema is our national committee man, Michigan's national committee man to the Republican National Committee. So, Dave, first off, I'm delighted to have you on for a moment. I know you're out of the area and you're probably on break from church, but tell me, where are we at with that drama in the attack against you?
Well, I think you're always going to have attack. I mean, that's part of the plan. It's called slamming. When anybody says anything negative about the homosexual lifestyle, the LGBT, they basically put out a call to action, and then they get letters written to everybody, all the senators, the governor, and everybody else saying how terrible that all is. But actually, what he said, like, for example, Robertson and myself, none of it was meant and was not spoken in a hateful manner at all. But that's what they try to say it is. They call it hate. And in fact, what we get back is great hatred, very venomous. I can't tell you all the nasty phone calls I got, vulgar T-shirts that sent to me that say "Hail Satan," da-da-da-da-da. It goes on and on. So the Christmas time is a time of reconciliation. What I want people to know is, I don't care if you're a Christian or not a Christian, but if you're a Christian, we should look at this as, okay, it's against Scripture, but we should still love the person and help them. And I think the reason we need to help them is because there's all kinds of studies out there, and I challenge people to go on to Google and just Google the negative effects of homosexuality. And even the Christian Catholic, Catholic Apologetics International has statistics on homosexuality and its effects. And I'm not slamming them by saying this. I'm just saying there are all kinds of negative effects on your health from that lifestyle. So rather than just stay ignorant and just use an emotional argument, all I'm asking for is that before we teach our kids, for example, in school, that they shouldn't smoke because it's unhealthy, I think we should be teaching that in sex ed class. Well, if you get involved with this, here's what you can expect to happen.
I think that's fair. One of the things that surprised me out of the attacks against you and Phil also was even beyond the words. In fact, in the first segment of this show today, Dave, I was talking about what just amazes me is if I don't agree with somebody, I don't don't feel so insecure that I've got to assault them. To me, it was fascist, the assaults that have been after Phil and you. And so it's not even an agree or a disagree with your position. It's fascism to try to shut you up.
Oh, there's no question. That's what they do. They basically try to humiliate whoever speaks so badly that everybody else will just be quiet so they can further their agenda. That's absolutely the way they work. So the question is, what do we do? Do we let them do that, or do we stand up? And as far as Phil and myself, I think the answer is to stand, because I think it's the right thing to do. And it's not because I hate homosexuals. I don't. I think it's just the right thing to do, and it's part of our platform as far as the traditional marriage.
You know, I watched a number of folks from the I think it's GLAAD, one specific fellow, but then a couple other folks that recognize themselves as members of GLAAD, which is, I can't remember the acronym, gay and lesbian something, but what their vitriol was to me, it was over the top. But listen, as a conservative, for the last 5 years especially, but certainly throughout my adult life, there have been times where the left has gotten more vitriol than other times and attacked conservatives in general, or me for saying my positions on even economic issues, not even issues of emotional, what we're talking about with personal sexual issues or religion. But what I've found fascinating all along the path is that their answer is always really over the top, outrageous, nasty attacks. I don't understand that thinking at all, Dave. Well,
again, you got to remember, that is how they get their agenda through. That's how they attack ad hominem attacks, so that people will see how bad a person is getting attacked, so they will not say anything. So it helps them shut everybody up who would speak any truth about the activity itself, and basically that's their goal. So it's an emotional attack. I understand that, but it bothers me when some of our own fall into that game and play that game. We should stand on a principle, and then just show it, for what it is, and show statistically through the CDC, the Oxford University of Epidemiology and so forth. They have all kinds of studies. You can look them up, and the fact that they do die younger, and it goes into many cases. So it's there. So does that mean that we hate? No. Does that mean that we're going to make life miserable for them? No. Does that mean that should we persecute them? No. But they will in turn persecute you if you speak any negative about that particular lifestyle that causes harm to society and the individual.
One thing I will comment on, though, Dave, is that I think the folks that are leaders in that community, in the gay community, they do not necessarily represent the average person that considers themselves gay. I say that, and I offer as an example. My aunt she's passed away now, lived a lifetime with another woman. When she died, her friend died 6 months later. I use them as an example. They were the opposite. They'd point at the stuff on TV that we're talking about, and she'd say, "Mike, does that stuff represent me? That's not how we live." And I say that because it's no different than some of the so-called black leaders that don't. They call themselves leaders of the black community, but they don't represent most black people. And I think that's true of some of the people that have been over the top in attacking you and also Phil Robertson.
Well, my goal is really simple. I just want people to know the facts. I want them to know about the studies. I want them to know what will happen if, for example, like the newspaper the other day was calling to put the homosexuality into the Elliott Larson Act, how that will be taught in schools, what will happen in your churches when it's now designated minority, you'll have to marry him, and so forth. It just leads to all kinds of things that I don't think we want to go down that line. But if we do, then we can expect similar things to happen like happened in Denmark and so forth. So to me, I look at this down the road for my grandkids, and I want them to know the truth. And the old Christian saying, the truth will set you free, So whether it's a religious reason, statistical reason, or just philosophical reasons, I think there's reasons that we should stand and just tell people, hey, we love them, but we don't want to have this get into our society to the point where it's forced down our throat, so to speak. And that's what's happening today. They're so obnoxious, and they're so vocal. Everybody's just afraid of them.
I think it's moved beyond trying to advance fairness and equity to a point where it's actually become promotional in a sale of that lifestyle. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so. everybody wants tolerance, but that group is particularly intolerant of anybody who disagrees with them, extremely so.
Now,
I find that interesting.
Dave, let me, not wanting to put you on the spot, but as the RNC committee man, is the Republican Party or people within it trying to push you to silence?
Somewhat. I mean, you got in every group, you have a large group that you have people that are pro and con. You'll have some of that, and some of it's political. They just think that, hey, we got to go along with this to get more votes. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think you lose more of your base than you will trying to go that route.
Yeah,
there is some of that, but again, I didn't run for state representative because I wanted to be politically correct. I didn't run for this job because I wanted to be politically correct. I just wanted to do what's good for the people and good for the state, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, Dave, I got to tell you, listen, I know that you snuck out, so I'll let you go, but I'm hoping to get you back on, maybe get you in the studio at some point in the near future, and we'll chew on it when you're back in the area. And
I appreciate that.
Yep.
And in the meantime, Google this stuff, folks. Just look it up. I mean, there's hundreds of articles, and you can look it up for yourself. And then you got the statistics, you got the facts, and make your judgments from there.
Yeah, very nice. Dave, thank you very, very much. I will talk to you soon. Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Merry Christmas to you, and have a good day. That's very unpolitically correct, by the way, but I like it.
Yeah, thank you for noticing.
See ya.
Okay, folks, we're almost out of time, and on that Merry Christmas note, I wanted to tell you Merry Christmas. Oscar, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you.
And to my family and my granddaughter Brienne and all my grandsons and granddaughters. To me, like I said throughout this hour today, this is truly about Christmas. It's about family. Get together and enjoy it. Be safe, and I'll look forward to seeing you somewhere next week, and we're going to pick up probably right where we left off. Have a great week, folks. I'll see you after the holiday. And, of course, it's double bubble this year because you got the Duck Dynasty drama. And even before that, for us Michigan folks, you've got Dave Agema, who, by the way, will probably be calling in at somewhere during the show today. But you've got some comments that Dave Agema made. In both cases, they're out of religious fervor. And frankly, from my standpoint as a Jeffersonian, it doesn't necessarily, I don't entirely agree with them, but I don't entirely disagree with them. The one thing that I'd say is that I absolutely agree with their right to say what they've said. And there's one of the other debates that's been going on kind of along with the center debate is whether that's a First Amendment right. The extreme left will shrilly yell back, it's not a First Amendment right. The First Amendment is to protect us from the government. And they're probably right. In fact, I've got the words in here somewhere during the day today. We're going to read the First Amendment just to make sure we're all on the same page. But whether it's a First Amendment right or not, it should be common sense, and for me, it's an American value. And in fact, I think that when folks, regardless of what side of the fence they're on, if you've listened to the show before, you know I don't talk like them either. That said, that's how A&E wanted to project them. They purposely sought a family that looked that way so that they could caricaturize people with faith. Now they've got what they asked for, and they appear to be uncomfortable with it. Fascinatingly enough, though, one of the pushbacks that we always get is, but what do the sponsors say? And I think that at least as of late last night, there was only one sponsor that was getting weak kneed, and that was Crockery Barrel, I think was the one. And even they weren't backing away. They were just taking off some of the products from their shelves that specifically had Phil's face on it. But when I stand back and look at it, I'm just amazed. It goes back to what I said before. Why would you want to hide the product? If as a consumer I don't want to buy it, I'm just not going to buy it. To me, and I don't want to be sensational, I'm not calling anybody a Nazi, so don't take me that way. But when I start hearing about the ideas that we're going to try to hide ideas, it truly does remind me of the pictures we've all seen out in Berlin where they had something. Of course, they'll say that's not true, but then they have their own doctrine. They have their absolutely a blind faith because they can't document it any more than anybody of any other faith can document it. That's the point of the word faith. And it's just amazing to me that at this late date in society, we've got opposing views that want to silence each other. Now, to different extremes, you got the Muslim fundamentalists that want to whack your head off. But I don't know that that's entirely different than what I've been hearing from the very hard left here in America over what the guy from Duck Dynasty said. And I have to be candid with you. I've never watched Duck Dynasty. I'm not against it. I've never watched it. But I will tell you it's fascinating the position that A&E has taken, because they have knowingly and wantingly wanted to sensationalize people with faith. That's what their real agenda was. Didn't have nothing to do with anything that had to do with ducks or their dynasty. It was about how they wanted to depict people of faith. And I'm a person of faith, but I don't look like anyone from Duck Dynasty. And when they reach out to try to silence the other side, to me, that's not only not American, it's by definition fascism. And I think it's a scary, scary thing to try to silence people. If I see something on TV, I affectionately call ABC the All Brock Channel, or then there's the National Brock Channel, or PMSNBC that loves to go out of their way to say absolutely sensational things. And you know what? I don't want to shut them up. And in fact, a lot of the times I'm applauding them, by the way, because they really help people to see who they really are. That said, when I don't want to listen anymore, you know what I do? I just change the channel. The idea of, in America, us saying, I want them off, I think that's mind-boggling. That's something from a very different time in world history, and I don't know that we want to go there. That's how I see it. But for me, let's drive into faith a little bit. I believe that it is a human nature to have faith. Even those folks that say they're atheists and that they have no faith have faith in their atheism. I think that's a human nature trend to have a need to believe in something.
News Talk 1090, WKBZ.
Welcome. You're listening to the Renegade River Show. My name is Mike Hewitt, and I got to tell you, it's good to be back. Oscar, was it 3 or 4 weeks I've been gone? Are you on there? 3 or 4 weeks?
I'm here. I think it was 3.
3 weeks?
3 weeks, yeah.
Seems like forever.
Yeah. And you picked the greatest day of the year to come back.
Isn't this a great time? Oh, yeah. I came in at 30 miles an hour. I was one of the old fogies everyone was waving at. I'm sure that's what they were doing.
You up there right next to the window, too, with your nose?
You betcha. Oh, yeah. Elbows bent, hanging on for dear life. Hey, today's show, I've got a whole bunch of notes I want to go over. So, Oscar, from time to time here, if I'm looking like I'm stumbling, you or keep your mic on just in case I get in trouble.
I can stumble with you anytime.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate it. Hey, for the last week or so, it seems, actually since I've been gone, it seems like there's been a resurgence of the cultural war. And I think that is probably part and parcel as we head towards Christmas time. It seems like it heats up every year.